The Metropolitan Police hired a child rapist because he was black and they wanted to hit a diversity target. They launched the world's worst DEI scheme. They wanted to hit a quota of black, Asian and ethnic minority staff. So what did they do? Well, they went back through recruits that they'd initially rejected, looked for people who weren't white, dropped their vetting standards and then hired them, just so that they could tick a box and say, yay, we're not racist, look how progressive we are. Well, it turned out they hired this guy. This is Cliff Mitchell. He had already been suspected of child rape at the time that the Metropolitan Police decided to hire him. But of course, he wasn't white, so the Met were happy to have him. He went on to be convicted of 10 counts of rape against 2 women, 3 counts of rape against a child under 13, 1 kidnap offence and 1 breach of a non-molestation order. In total, 114 vetting decisions were overruled by the diversity panel. 25 of those turned out to be criminals. They lowered standards to appease the diversity brigade and they employed rapists and criminals. Cosmic. But this news comes just a couple of days after this.
Why are we only hearing about this now? Why is it that a report has come at lunchtime today from the Times newspaper that you had information on the 5th of September that there were likely to be vigilante groups within the West Midlands community itself who were planning to take action against the Maccabi fans? How is it that this committee is just hearing this for the first time?
Well, I think this is the first time specifically that you've asked for that detail. Well, that's what we tried. That's what we tried to get across.
Absolutely outrageous.
Ridiculous. West Midlands Police consulted mosques that hosted anti-Semitic preachers, didn't reveal details about armed Muslim gangs and apparently relied on false intelligence just so that they could appease the Muslim community in Birmingham and ban Jews from coming. Nobody has been sacked yet for that, remarkably. In April last year, West Yorkshire Police temporarily blocked white British candidates from applying for jobs as recruits to its police constable entry programmes. Black and Asian candidates were allowed to apply early. In 2019, Cheshire Police was ordered to pay thousands after an employment tribunal found they had discriminated against a well-qualified white applicant. The force had rejected him despite his high scores in an effort to improve the representation of minority groups. Thames Valley Police were found to have engaged in unlawful positive discrimination. The force appointed an Asian sergeant to the rank without any competitive process or public advertisement. They had a make it happen mandate. Yay! I mean, make anti-white discrimination and the lowering of police standards happen. Fantastic. It's not just police forces who appear to have prioritised diversity over quality. The RAF discriminated against white male recruits. They fast-tracked women and ethnic minorities instead. MI5 and MI6 and GCHQ all have diversity drives. They launched a 10 to 11 week programme specifically for university students from black, Asian and ethnic minority backgrounds, as well as those from socially or economically disadvantaged backgrounds. Do we really want our intelligence services messing around like that? You know how we keep hearing about the threat of AI and cyber attacks? Well, Britain's leading AI security body, the Alan Turing Institute, scrapped its key diversity mandate after coming under pressure from ministers to actually prioritise national security over investigating social bias and workplace cultures. The London Fire Brigade declared itself to be institutionally racist. Then, when they were asked about why they were racist by Lee Anderson MP during a select committee hearing, they just couldn't give any examples.
Could you please tell me, Councillor, what unfair advantages white people have in your force?
I would hope not, none.
Do they have any advantages?
No.
So then how can you be institutionally racist?
Sorry, I might have to get back to you.
Unbelievable, isn't it? Unbelievable. People who say that Britain is racist are idiots. We need to stop this. Is Britain better or worse than it was 15 years ago? Is anything working better? No. We need to stop messing about with stuff like this and just hire people on merit.
Hello, I'm Bev Turner. Now, it can feel like the money in our bank accounts at the moment does not keep up with the cost of living, and maybe there's a solution. I'm here today with the CEO of TallyMoney, Cameron Parry. Cameron, what is TallyMoney?
Well, Bev, with TallyMoney, you get a current account and a debit card, but instead of pounds, you use milligrams of gold as your everyday money.
So why gold?
Gold traditionally is a great store of value. It has, on average, gone up at over 11% per annum for the last 25 years against the pound. It's tripled in value in the last decade. And in the last 2 years alone, it's increased by 50% against the pound. Banks' savings products just can't compete with that level of growth.
But this isn't just about gold. This is about a currency that you guys have created at TallyMoney. Explain it to me as though I'm an idiot.
So, look, people need to be able to hold their earnings and build their savings in a money that retains its value and remains in their legal control and remains theirs to access, away from government control.
Great. You had me at not exposed to government control.
You should feel safe and happy with your money. You should have peace of mind. The more money you see in your bank balance, and that's the type of thing we're trying to deliver, and give people choice in the type of money they get to use every day.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Cameron. Thank you.
Let's go towards my panel. Reform UK candidate Orla Minahan, Tory peer Lord Bailey and ex-Labour Party advisor Matthew Larser. Sean, I'll come to you first on this if you don't mind, my good man. What do you make of these, well, specifically in relation to the Metropolitan Police, lowering of their standards and hiring, in this case, amongst other criminals, a child rapist?
There's a couple of things I say. Firstly, this is a huge failing in their vetting, but it's a deliberate fail. It wasn't some kind of technical mistake. It was a policy failure. And I hesitate to ask for people to lose their jobs, but somebody does need to get a stern talking to over this because it's ridiculous. But what it shows you is there's a culture that's setting that people are terrified of confronting anything around race or what we would call protected characteristics. That's the first thing. The second thing, as a black person, I'm quite offended. I'd like to believe I could qualify purely on my own merit. Mm-hmm. And the point is, if you start putting women, black people, gay people in places because of who they are, they'll never get any respect and never get the job done. Mm-hmm. And of course, in the context of the police, what's important, you literally could be talking about life and death. I'd say the same thing for the armed forces as well. What we need to do is go all the way up the line, find the civil servants, find the ministers, find whoever it is making this stuff happen, and remove them, because this is cultural now. And you would think after a sex grooming gangs case that people would have thought, OK, enough is enough. I feel safe enough now to do something on merit, not just around colour. It's important. And the other thing, of course, is you're ruining people's belief in any of these services. And what it is, it becomes lazy. The fire brigade saying it's institutionally racist is just to make people back off, just so people will leave them alone. Well, actually, make those people prove that you're racist or don't accept the title, because you denigrate the work of all the good people, black and white, that are inside the service.
Which is how thick they are as well. I mean, that fire brigade officer, whatever she was, you could see what Lee Anderson was trying to do there. He said, OK, well, give me an example of how white people are unfairly advantaged. She goes, no, they're not. No, they're not. To be proud to say, oh, we're not racist. Well, why are you here then? You just declared yourself to be institutionally racist. I mean, it's pathetic. But, I mean, look, what we've just done there, Ollie, is we've rattled through a variety of different police forces, the fire brigade, and actually MI5, MI6 and GCHQ, who have all submitted themselves to these diversity policies. Should it just be on merit?
Absolutely. It doesn't matter who you are, what you are. The best person for the job is the person that should get the job. That's the first thing. Secondly, if your house was on fire, would you care if the man that came to put the fire out was black, white or yellow? Because I wouldn't. I just want the fire put out. So that's absolute nonsense. Going back to this police officer, this is a man who he wasn't shoplifting. He didn't have a fight outside a pub. He was a child rapist. The most vile, inhumane crime that you could possibly commit. But OK, because he's black, we'll take him. It is mind-boggling. I mean, look at Wayne Couzens now. Apparently he slipped the net and they didn't know about him. But this guy, they knew.
Well, they knew he'd been accused of it. Yeah, so they knew that he'd previously been accused of it and that the charges were dropped, but obviously he'd failed the vetting procedure. And I think, look, let's be honest, you have to ask serious questions about someone like that.
Absolutely. And the thing is, why is it always the public sector where these things happen? In the private sector, you can't, if you get the wrong grade grade in your GCSEs, they'll withdraw an offer. But in the public sector, anything goes.
It's because we are not punishing the people at the very top. There's mandarins hiding in places who are setting these policies, who we are not pursuing. They need to be pursued. It's the only way the culture will change.
The Met Police, though, is that the worst ever DEI scheme, do you think?
Well, clearly there was something wrong with this DEI scheme. Diversity as a concept is really important, including in the Met Police. Common sense is also really important, and you cannot allow anything to triumph common sense. I mean, 132 people were allowed through because had their original, had their no turn into a yes in the Met because there's a diversity scheme. But overall, 17,355 officers out with the diversity scheme didn't have their references checked properly. So there was something seriously wrong in the Met. But look, absolutely. I mean, you saw that fire, the clip of Lee asking the person from the fire brigade, the fire service, and they just made an absolute fool of themselves. I'll get back to you on why institution are racist. That isn't common sense, and that is what brings diversity into into parody, really. But the idea that you have a police force that looks, I mean, Sean, you'll remember the police force in the 70s and 80s in London was overwhelmingly white, didn't reflect London, and there were issues that arose because of that. You need diversity, but you need common sense.
There's two things I'd say. Firstly, you are never going to get parity in a place like London. There's not going to be an equal amount of... But it is nice to get some kind of mix. But the way in which you get that mix, it's not by patronising black people and saying we have to lower the standards because you're thick. What you say to black people is, let's get you up to this standard. One of the things that the black community suffers from is black graduates with no jobs. It's one of the biggest things there. So clearly up to standard. Encourage them to join. Encourage them to face the same trials that anybody else will be, black or white. Because one of the best things about being in a uniform service is having the respect of your colleagues. It's more important than in even any other job. And you can only do that because you came in the right way.
Do you know... Oh, sorry, go on, Sean.
I was just going to say, because the other aspect of this is actually anti-white racism. Right? And that could be levelled at the feet of several of the organisations. I mean, in the case of the RAF, for example, I mean, it was anti-white discrimination that they were found to have committed there, and we are seeing that. I would argue time and time again. People don't like to talk about that, but right at the core of several institutions there, you could argue, I think, that there is a little bit of anti-white racism.
Of course there is, because they want to be seen to do the right thing. But just quickly on the police issue. Do you know the biggest problem with recruiting in to the police force is the pay? Would you? They don't pay him enough. Simple. I work with a guy who left the police force and came into the private sector and was earning double the money. He's not putting his life on the line every day.
I don't want to tell you that police officers are low because it isn't true, but I will tell you two things. As a young person, if you join the police force, you start pretty high up the salary situation compared to other young people, and of course you get a good pension. I'm not suggesting joining the police force is where to become a millionaire, but at this point it's a fairly decent career.
OK, just a quick sweepstake and we'll move on. Would you scrap all DEI schemes?
Yes, I would.
Would you, Sean?
Yes.
Would you, Matthew? No.
I absolutely would.
I would change the nature.
Why is Sean wrong?
Well, because actually when Sean was saying things like connecting black graduates, getting more black graduates into police force means about having sensible conversations, doing sensible diversity things, like, answering the conundrum that Sean posed, rather than overturning people who shouldn't be getting jobs.
Yeah, but if you make a DEI scheme, you are patronising. What you should be doing is going and finding people who you would like to join.
It's a diversity scheme in itself.
It isn't, because as long as those people have to face the same training regime...
I agree with they should have the same training regime.
Lowering the standards, lowering the vetting procedure. I get it. Anyway.
Don't lower the vetting procedure, don't lower the standards, but have the conversation.
But also, just on that quickly, I've seen protests recently where you've got female police officers that are about that big and you could blow them over. What use are they to anyone? I mean, come on.
I mean, I admire their courage and bravery.
Yeah, but there needs to be an element of sensible hiring.
I agree. I have been at a lot to report on several demonstrations for a variety of different things, and there have been numerous times when I've gone there and I've thought I'd take my hat off to this female police officer because she's very brave, but she's tiny.
Exactly, and it's ridiculous.
Right, OK. Now, the Assistant Commissioner, Rachel Williams, said this. We are being open and transparent about past vetting and recruitment practices that led, in some cases, to unsuitable people joining the Met Police. We found that some historical practices did not meet the strengthened hiring and vetting standards we have today. We identified these issues ourselves and have fixed them quickly while making sure that any risk to the public has been properly and effectively managed. Right, look.